Good morning. It is Friday, June 20th. How'd you get through the week? What did you do? How did you manage? What decisions have you made? What choices would you like to make? And what are you doing to make that choice, make that different decision? I am Kitryn Marie. I'm an artist, writer, speaker, life and a business coach, teach a variety of art classes, reside in St. Louis, Missouri. It has been one hell of a week, and the overwhelming sadness that has come into my life, it's almost too much to bear. But how am I getting through it? And what has been going on? And I'm kind of like watching my dog. She wants to like guard. She thinks everybody's out to get us. My vehicle, it's back in the shop for the 5th time, I believe. The anti-lock brakes went out on it, and the engine is doing some very weird vibrating thing. And I drove around with the head mechanic yesterday, so he could see all the things that I felt. Was I imagining it? Was it really happening? Did it feel like something was going to come through the floorboards? But anyway, I was not imagining it. So I have a rental car, which is like driving an airplane. Everything is on a button. I don't know who designed these new vehicles, but really, us old school people, we have a hard time navigating these buttons, and why is there no key, and why is everything on this electrical panel, and I don't know, it's enough. But I don't really have too much to do today other than to work in my yard, my garden. My tomatoes are coming up beautifully, and my peppers, I have more pepper seeds that I will plant. Going to split a huge palm that I have. There are things that I am focusing on since I do not have my princess pony to go running out to. Also, the grief. And I'm going to try to get through this really without like choking up and tearing up. God forbid anybody say I'm embarrassing myself on the internet, being authentic and real, showing emotions, because that's what humans do when they have situations that affect their life. But I'm having a hard time telling myself I have to go get her stuff. And also I have to pay the barn for burying her, which was an expense I really didn't feel I was going to have to encounter, but I am managing with all that. So the horse, my car, the kid, he got the damage assessment, $4,000 to fix his car. That's with body work and repair everything that was destroyed when the stolen car plowed into him. So that has been a little disheartening on our end. You know, it's like, how much can I help him? Can I help him? You know, what does he have in his bank account? And I never ask. That is, you know, as a parent, and I never have talked like real money things with my kids. What they choose to do with their incomes is on them. I want to see them being successful. I don't need to know what's in their bank account, but what bank accounts I have there on it in the event, God forbid, something happened to me. I've been responsible to make sure they know what is going on. That's a hard call too, really. You know, I'm looking at all 3 of my kids who all have pretty much level heads, and I'm like, who do you make the one be in charge of everything? My daughter's getting ready to start her new job. She was hired on as an assistant principal. I don't know if I'd ever said that. Jason is, my oldest, is acclimating really well in the physical therapy department for one of our major hospitals, and Tyler has kind of branched out a little bit in his construction during the day, and he's still, of course, flipping pizzas at our local St. Louis City pizza establishment. But I'm trying to get through the week. I have been singing again, trying to find my voice. You know, it's one thing to speak. It is one thing to be able to look into a camera via your phone or an actual camera, you know, to do video, but finding your voice. So this morning I was on YouTube. I always check my stats. My last video, I'm over 100 views, which I'm very thankful for. It was on fear, being afraid, and what choices you're not making because you don't know how to take that uncalculated risk. But finding your voice, being able to be authentic to who you are. Most people don't know I studied theater vocal. I was thinking about this a lot about this week with losing my pony and having conversations with my grandma as, you know, a little kid. And I'd say I want a horse and I want cows and I want to live on a farm. And I've been saying that since I've been 5 years old. And my grandma would say, Kit, we are city people. We are not farmers. We do not live in the country. But on the flip side of all of that, my grandpa he was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. No, I take that back, Nashville, Illinois. And my dad was born and raised in Springfield, Illinois. And country roots were their backgrounds, you know, making things from scratch, growing things from the ground, canning, making do with what you have and what resources you could take advantage of living off the land. So all of those things have been instilled, and by today's standard, we're looking at these upcoming families who are uprooting from the city, going back to the country because they are homesteading. And it's all that homesteading in the background of my life, which I really believe made a grave impact on my life and what my choices and my goals and where I wanted to go. Now, with all that said, being 5 years old saying I want to live on a farm, that same question was asked to me when I was 12, 16 years old, I guess, and you know, my aunt, trying to be comical, she said, Kit, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a movie star. I want to sing. I want to perform on a stage. So when I was going to, high school first, I guess it started out with that claim to fame. You know, I was in a play, got a standing ovation for being the drunken maid in Noel Coward's See How They Run. Sang in the choir, did all kinds of vocal things, took private vocal lessons, got into college, studied theater, studied, vocal theater. So here this week, I've just been trying to find my voice, trying to figure out what my next move is. So again, this morning, I was on YouTube and I was listening to a bunch of different older singers, Judy Garland, Barbra Streisand, Frank Sinatra, that kind of thing, trying to find this place that's going to make me happy, give me, perspective into what's next. But what are you doing? How are you finding your perception and your perspective? And what are you doing to be a better decision maker? I have come across very many people who have a hard time making decisions. When you make a decision, it alters not only your personality and your actions and the direction in which you want to go, but when you cannot make a decision, it's mostly because somewhere along the line when you were a child, you were never made to feel secure with who you were and what you did as a child. Somebody made you question why you were doing that. So if that pattern continues in your life as you get to be older, you take that safe stance. You stay in a position because you were so insecure with who you are, and God forbid you make the wrong choice. who's going to lash out at you, and how is that going to make you feel? Because maybe you're questioning if you even made the right choice. And because if you've made the wrong choice, you're stuck with that decision with no way to change it, alter it, get out of it. And I think that is one thing about me personally, why I never stay too long at any employment situation. I don't want to be stuck in a decision that in the long run is not going to be good for me. It's not so much about not making the commitment, because wherever I'm at working, I jump in 200%. I give everything that I can, that I know how to do. But also when I feel I am becoming overwhelmed, I make the decision, okay, this is only going to be temporary, and I need to, show my ingenuity, my survival skills, which are like second skin to me, and then making that decision, okay, it's time to go on, it's time to do something else. And what happens too many times is, as people are making these non-decisions, they are committing to this miserable life. Somewhere along the line, as they have been made to be insecure with their choice and who they are and why they do the things that they do, they become very familiar with these safe places where they don't have to make a decision, where they don't have to change. And I'm going to throw this out here, and I'm going to try to be very kind about describing this situation. You have a guy and a girl. The girl has lived on her own her whole life. She's gone from place to place to place because that's just who she is. The security is in the security of the moment, like I kind of described myself. The guy has gotten himself locked into an apartment situation because there is a formable relationship with the person that who's the landlord. And because of that uncomfortable safety position that he has landed himself in order to leave that, he doesn't know what else is out there. Therefore, he will not make a decision to leave that formable relationship, whether it be a good relationship with his landlord or a bad relationship with the landlord, because that is his security. That is his safe place. That is his safe spot. That is where he can retrieve to, because somewhere along the line, him growing up, all of his choices, somebody always questioned. And at this point in his life, because he does not want to be questioned, does not want to be out of his skin, does not want to be out of his safety zone, will refuse to make a decision to move elsewhere. So therefore, the conflict between the girl and the guy, where she's wanting to go and he's wanting to stay, because once he would make that decision to go, he no longer has a safe spot, and it's very much an uncomfortable situation, because when you are always looking for reasons to run and not to be secure in something, you sabotage things. You make life so uncomfortable for not only yourself, but for the people that are involved with you, that you have no other way but to retreat, to go back to this safe spot, because that safe spot tells you you're okay, you're good where you are. It might not be the best of situations, but at least you can regulate an emotion, because when you are changing and making decisions, your emotions are all over the board, and you cannot regulate the consequence or the result or the benefit of what will come with that change. That's just one scenario that I can give you on decision making. I don't have a problem making a decision. I mull things over sometimes. I do take a lot of uncalculated risks. If I would have never have taken on my horse, I would not have ever learned that experience, the experience that I had been wanting since I was 5 years old. You know, chance, change. You know, it's the only thing we really have in this life. You know, you do adapt and you do overcome. And sometimes you just have to let your emotions run just to see where you're going to come out on that other side. So this week, you know, like I said, I've just kind of been figuring out what comes next. You know, I'm trying to teach some art classes. I've looked at all my supplies. I need to run over to the Hobbly Lobbly. You know, I mean, I'm going to have an additional amount of money since I'm not putting it towards my horse. I will put it towards moving because I still want to move, especially since the kids' car was damaged so bad from the irresponsibility and an apartment complex that would not take accountability for the residents keeping this side of the subdivision safe. There's been quite a few weapon altercations on that side that I no longer want to be a part on. I'm real close to the city, and you know, there are nicer parts of the city, but there is also too much diversity that I don't want to be exposed to. That doesn't make me a bad person. Maybe it just makes me want to be more sheltered, makes me want to get back to those roots of who I am and what I've been trying to achieve, and the dream that I'm trying to manifest, for lack of terms, lack of better words. What else do I have going on? Once I get my vehicle back, I'm going to probably take a trip to Table Rock. Can't wait to sit on a dock and just, you know, 4 days fish, sit in the sun. Today I'm going to tackle my front yard. I let go of the guy that was cutting the front grass. I didn't like the way he was doing it. That's an old person thing. When you're out there assessing the grass blades, I want it done right, and I want it done the way that I see that I want it done. So I told him, you know, we'll take care of it from here. Again, without having to run out to my horse a couple times a week. I have the extra time. I'm going to work on my pool in the backyard. There's all kinds of things that I'm going to be trying to focus more on. I would love to, you know, do some more photography. I had a great photo shoot a couple weeks ago. If you go over to, where did I put those pictures? I put a couple of them up on my Facebook business page, KM Designs, A Writer's Mind. Great gal. Met her over at Francis Park. We did a small photo shoot. It was a class, actually, teaching her how to pose. She wanted to be more comfortable within her skin taking pictures. You know, we need social media whether we like it or not. You know, it's how we put out there who we are and what we do and why we do the things we do. And everybody loves a good success story. Everybody loves a good love story. You know, do you have a good love story? Do you have someone, a partner, a person, someone that you have connected with that you just can't explain? You know, I always say there is a string theory, and I talk about this in my vision board class. I'm going to try to get comfortable here. The string theory is you are connected to somebody through lifetimes, through situations. I would say that string theory, before you were born, before you were sent to this earth, you know, you have this pact with your higher power, whoever your higher power is. And it's in the Akashic records, and you can look up Akashic records. But you have this contract that you've made, and you have stated what you want in this life when you are sent to it. And your higher power, your universe, your God, whoever it is that you go to, has said, I will give you all these things, and there will be things that you will be tested on. You will have a string theory, and whether it's this life that I'm sending you to or the last life that you were in, as long as that string is connected to that person, that energy will always be. So, as you're talking about your love story, how are you connected to your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, person, partner? I always like to refer to the guy that I was involved with as my person. It just seemed more grown up. Your person is someone that you can rely on, that you count on, that you depend on, not financially, but just emotionally and mentally as your security. And when security has been questioned and it throws the situation into an imbalance, no matter how far that person goes, your partner, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you are still connected at a string or by a string until the cord is actually severed. Does it ever sever? I don't really know. I don't have an answer for that. But I do know when there is that string connection, this life, the last life, the next life, somewhere along the line, the souls meet. They come back together in different situations. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you another story because I am full of stories today. I have so much in this head of mine that I just really need to get it out. And I'm hoping whoever it is that is listening, you are gathering some information from me and you are processing it through your own life, through your own relationships and situations. Hold on. There is such a haze over St. Louis this morning. The heat is rising, and it's going to be getting like up into the hundreds in the next couple days. But you can see it, and it's just affecting my throat. It doesn't help that I've been belting out Happy Days Are Here again this morning. But anyway, I had always said in a previous life, back in Civil War times, I was married to a soldier. I mean, I know this is like true skin, true facts. This is the life that I lived before. It also explains why I am so connected to the Tennessee mountains, the Appalachians, North Carolina. And I've only been to North Carolina twice. The mountains, the beach, through Tennessee. It was like being at home. I'm like, this is home. This is where I live. This is where I belong. Never had gone to Tennessee or anything like that as a kid. We always went west. But anyway, in this previous life that I lived, probably a mountain woman, probably medicinal, growing things out of the ground, using them for health purposes, probably some kind of a land practitioner, having cattle, married a Civil War soldier. He was always called to the war. He was always called to defending and protecting. And he would go off to do his war things. And honestly, I don't know a whole bunch about the Civil War. I like Civil War things, and if I see it, I will be glued to it. In fact, here in Ironton, Missouri, on the other side of Fredericktown and Bonne Terre and Farmington, there is a Civil War museum. Check it out. Go see it. But anyway, I'm drawn to this time and this era. So, as my soldier husband has gone off, we had a family. We had twin girls. Ivy, Rose were the girls. Why I have that name, I don't know. Or maybe, I know it was two flower names, Lily and Rose. And it's not the same as the Sex and the City Charlotte who had Lily and Rose. But I've always seen these little girl twins in my head. You know, they've got the sack dresses on. They've got the laced up, like little boot shoes. They've got long, wavy, kind of sandy brown hair. I can see it as I can look at my dog right now. I see it in my vision. And we lived on this homestead, small homestead, log cabin, big dirt porch. And this man that I was married to in the Civil War time, he goes off to war and he doesn't return. And heartbroken, having to maintain a homestead all by myself, taking care of these twin girls. You know, times get tough. The soldiers come and they take what they want from her, from the homestead. Her girls get sick. The girls do not survive. She does not survive. I do not survive at that time, in that story, in that string theory. Finally, when the soldier comes back, her husband, he was gone too long, and everything that he had wanted and everything that he had worked for and everything that he was connected to be true to him, he no longer had. It was taken away from him. Now, what does that have to do with anything now? The last person that I was involved with was a military personnel who had been out of it for quite some time, would have made a career out of it. The string theory, and I won't get into all of those details, other than the connection that we had through that string theory, through that connection, and when we traveled to Tennessee or to North Carolina, and it probably helped that when he was in basic training and lived a good portion of his life was in North Carolina. But when we went, it was a matter of him showing me where he had learned so many different things. You know, and like life happens, things get in the way. People want that security, they want that safety, and they no longer know how to make that decision for a better environment to adapt to a new situation and to overcome the fear. And sadly, the relationship just kind of dissipated. That's all I can say about that. But in the Akashic record, when you are looking and understanding why you were drawn to so many different things, and you have no answers to why you were drawn to these things, you have to stop and think about what could be your string theory. What are you attached to that has carried you from one life to this life and into the next? And because of all of those connections and because of all those strings that you were attached to, how are you acting upon it instead of running away from what you cannot put your finger on because there is no logic behind anything? I want you to think about that. I want you to think about, what are you connected to? What is your string theory? What is the things that you cannot let go of? And it's not because you're trauma bonded. Not everything is a trauma bond, regardless of what, all the narcissism studies show. And it's not because things are a habit, or not because it's just familiar and it's routine, but there is some innate connection that you cannot wrap your head around because it does not show any logistical sign of why it should be. Those are things I teach and talk about in my vision board class. Your vision board class, it's not so much just, that art enrichment where you're cutting and pasting images and looking for words. It is allowing you to see the things that you were finding interest in, but you have no answers to why you have an interest in it. I would love to hear your love story, or as they call it, your butterfly effect. What is your butterfly effect? What was the thing that got you on a journey that you had no idea how you were going to end up? But if this one thing did not happen, or if this one decision or choice was not made, and then it showed back up in your life later on, proving logistics had nothing to it other than this is fate and this is the way things are supposed to turn out, regardless of maybe what you sabotaged, maybe what you were afraid of, maybe because you have not been able to have a clear, concise vision on what it is you want on that other side. Class is $65. I can do it in a group. I can do it in a private class. I can come to you. I have a venue, one-on-one. You're more than welcome to come to the shoebox. I am working on different air conditioning. That's the other thing on the list, air conditioning. But I want you to think about what are your choices going to be, and how afraid are you to change the situation because you're looking at your life and it's not working. And whatever decision, choice that you have made because you were looking for a familiar safety, a familiar comfort that is actually rubbing you wrong, the gnaw within yourself because you know you created a situation that ended in a result because you couldn't regulate an emotion out of that decision, being overwhelmed. If you continue to stay overwhelmed, you succumb to grief. Grief is a place to live temporarily. It is not a place to dwell. It is not a place to unpack the whole rest of your life and make other people suffer because you do not know how to regulate the emotion and work through the stages of grief. This week I am grieving. I am grieving in all kinds of ways that I don't think I have ever ventured into. You know, when I lost my dad, I'm going to veer a little bit. When I lost my dad, Dad was 59 years old. I was 32, two small kids, was not happy in my marriage, and took care of my dad until he died. It was a short 3 month. He was diagnosed. My sister and I prayed. We were hoping for a good outcome. You know, my dad was a heavy smoker, was a drinker, and it was the cigarettes pretty much that helped along his liver cancer. But when Dad died, this is the point I'm getting to, when Dad died, the immense grief that comes with losing somebody you see every day in your life. And there wasn't, before I had even moved in with my dad, there wasn't a day that I didn't talk to him twice a day where the phone call didn't end in, you know, I love you, Dad, I'll talk to you later, I'll call you later. But there was no regret when my dad died. I did not have that regret of, oh my God, I didn't do what I was supposed to. Could I have done anything different? I did not have that. With my horse, the immense grief I have regretting that I didn't do enough. And I was not there when she passed. Unlike with my dad, I was there. I was right there. He was just in the other room. With my horse, she was 45 minutes away from me, and I could not be there because life was happening. In order to do what I could with what I had to work with, which now I'm feeling it wasn't enough. And did I let her down? That is a part of grief that most people do not know how to handle because there is guilt with regret. You know, there are adult children who lose their parents, and they second guess why they weren't there in their parents' life, why they didn't be more present. I was listening to one of the kids at work yesterday, and I'd asked him, I said, what do you do when you're not here? He goes, oh, I go and I check in on my grandma and grandpa a couple times a week. I was like, oh my God, I love that. I love this kid anyway. He's a good, hard worker. He runs our food for us. Gets ice. He's just a great kid. Good head on his shoulder, good work ethic. And after I heard that from him yesterday, I'm like, these are things why people have regret. There was no string theory. You know, there are some stories where children feel like they are reborn into the same parent, the same souls. But the grief that comes from when you are not present, especially while you are alive, don't allow your disconnect to keep your emotions out of context, because you don't know where to put them in. You know, while we are still alive, look at what you have and look at the connection and the impact that you are making with the people that are around you. Again, we talk about those things in my vision board class. You know, my family's all gone. I have a sister who I am no longer speaking to. I have my kids, I have my grandkids, my dogs, people I work with. And that is how life has manifested. It is how I choose it to be until something else changes. Until I decide it is time to make that decision to do something different. And I'm not afraid. I will do that. And then before I leave out of here, I will segue into the book that I've been writing. It is going to be open to the public to purchase in a couple weeks. I have a copy, an author copy, coming today. In fact, I have 3 copies coming, and one lucky winner will get the book before it's even available for the public to purchase. If you are interested, leave me a message below and I will pick a winner out of that. Give me your email address and just in the comments below say, I want to win and read the book. But anyway, that's a mouthful today. You know, decisions, choices, not afraid to do the things you need to do in order to overcome, adapt, and decide what's next in your life that's going to work for you and make you happy. Fate turns on a dime. You decide what side of that coin you want to be on. You know, be happy, be blessed, be thankful for everything. Look at your life now. Are you grieving? Are you hesitating on making choices and decisions that are going to alter your life for the better? Somewhere in the next couple weeks, I'm going to be looking into taking back my maiden name. I no longer have a need to keep my marriage name, and although I pretty much go by my middle name, Marie, Kitryn Marie is how you will find me on the net, I just think it's time to go back really to the roots of who I am, how things began, in order to start again. If you are interested in taking a painting class, it is a group class. It's $45 a person, minimum 10. I come to you, or I do have a venue. I bring all the supplies. You pick your theme. Kind of thinking about it. I'm going to start working on a lobster theme. I don't know if I had said that. That's my crawfish and Bloody Mary mix. Kind of reminds me of New Orleans, which I'm hoping to get back to maybe by fall. We'll see. But it is $45. Just email Kitryn_Marie at yahoo.com or leave me a comment below to get scheduled for that. What else? The vision board class is $65. You provide the materials, and it's a gamut of your life, where you've been, where you want to go, what you would like to see happen in your life, and how you can become a better person to live for a higher mission, a higher purpose, to allow you, while you are on this planet, in this lot, in this space, to become just a better individual to yourself and to those that are surrounded by you. But I am Kitryn Marie, an artist, writer, speaker, life and a business coach. A lot going on. I hope you're all doing well. Take care. Flip the coin. Make the decision. Look at your life. Who's it really impacting? Take care, and I will see you real soon. Bye.